Hollow Knight is an utterly massive game. Released back in 2017, the game still feels like a modern Metroidvania that invites you into its world with its fluid animation and mysterious story. 3 years later, the game has now received 4 DLC updates and multiple ports with a sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, currently in the works. While the game does have plenty of platforming elements, seriously, the White Palace and Path of Pain were definitely difficult challenges. It tends to focus more on combat. Of course, Hollow Knight has your usual enemies that you might find in a Metroidvania game, except this time in a cool, creepy bug aesthetic. But where the game truly shines is in its boss fights, of which there are over 30. However, despite this great amount, most people when asked which boss is their favorite will say that Grimm, or Nightmare King Grimm, who is the harder dream variant of the boss, is their favorite. So why is it that people like Grimm so much? Let's get into it. So after tackling the False Knight and besting Hornet, you'll be directed down into the fungal waste where you need to find some way into the City of Tears. A little more exploring and you'll eventually find yourself in the Mantis village, where you can pick up the Mantis Claw. Aha! The perfect tool to get into the City of Tears. With some tight platforming, of course. But the game also gives you another option. Keen players who explore a little deeper will meet one of Hollow Knight's major bosses, the Mantis Lords. Who are also a fan favorite. Here's what they have to say when you first encounter them. Nothing. All there is an indicator to challenge them. And this is the first key thing that makes these fights so enjoyable. Rather than battling a big monster, or a fight where the boss is constantly chasing you, these fights are a duel between warriors. And after challenging them, this idea transfers right into the boss's attacks and character design. Let's take a look at the character design first. Upon closer examination, you'll notice that the Mantis Lords actually look rather similar to the player character. Both have horn-like things on their heads, and they actually wear what appears to be the same kind of cloak. Their weapons are also quite similar, with both being long swords of sorts. As you can see, both appear to be very similar, which drives home the idea that this is a duel. On the surface, you and your opponent are the same, and the only difference is skill level. So now their attacks. The Mantis Lords actually have only 3 attacks. These are the dash, the smash, and the lash, or their projectile attack. So 3 attacks might not seem like a lot, but it's actually really fitting since a lot of players who fight the Mantis Lords early in the game also only have 3 abilities. There's your dash, your down strike, and Vengeful Spirit, which is your projectile attack. Notice how both you and your opponent have very similar moves, again showing that you are equals. Something I found especially interesting was how each of your moves is effective on their corresponding move. So your dash works good to avoid their dash. Your down strike is effective to deal damage right after their down thrust, and using Vengeful Spirit is a really good way to damage the Mantis Lords when they throw out their weapons on the sides. Once the player realizes these connections, the battle becomes a fast-paced dance where each of you play your part to progress to the next move. And when you finally defeat them, it's especially rewarding because you as a player know that you bested a worthy opponent, since they had all the skills you had. The Mantis Lords play this feeling up as well by bowing down to you in respect for your triumph. Even all the Mantises in the village won't hurt you anymore, knowing that you are a worthy warrior. It's a nice touch. So based on all this, we can break down what makes this fight so rewarding into parts. The challenge, taking on the opponent for the thrill of the fight. The duel, having you and your opponent be equal on a surface level. The dance, having each attack and counter play out like a choreographed piece. And the respect, having your opponent see you and your grown skill level just as much as yourself. Knowing these 4 steps, let's see how we can translate them to Grimm's fight. Grimm sends you on a fetch quest around Hallownest to help the Grimm child grow, so the troop can prolong the life of the Nightmare Heart. Without getting too much into the lore, all you need to take away from this is that the whole thing is optional. Players have to find the lantern in the Howling Cliffs if they want to activate the Grimm troop. The whole point of the Grimm troop DLC is that it's a bonus challenge. So there's a first similarity with the Mantis Lords, both being optional challenges. The fight also plays out like a duel for the same reasons. I don't think it's coincidence that Grimm is built similarly to the Knight once again. The horns, the body structure, and the cloak all make him look like the player, or at least comparable to their form. Grimm, in the first fight, has 5 attacks. These are his dash jump, where he disappears into the falling flames, his dive, he has bats where he stands still and unleashes 3 at a time, his upward root attack, and his bloating pufferfish move, where he decides that he's going to become invincible and fill the screen with projectiles. It's 2 more than the Mantis Lords, but that's okay because you as a player have gained more moves as well, including the Desolate Dive, the Howling Wraiths, and the Monarch Wings. Likewise, Grimm's moves are stronger than the Mantis Lords, but that's okay too, because you as the player have most likely upgraded your spells, or dash, or nail. Case in point, Grimm is a stronger opponent than the Mantis Lords, but you've also become stronger too. Grimm actually asks you to dance with him in some of his dialogue before the fight. It reads, "Dance with me, my friend. The crowd awaits. Show them you are worthy of the starring role." This also translates to the gameplay as well, because Grimm's attacks also have a perfect counter. For example, when he unleashes his bats, the knight can do a jump and dash to get across. Or when he does his dive, you can get on top of him for a quick downstrike. Finally, there's Grimm's respect for the player. At the beginning of the fight, he bows, which is an opportunity for you to get a cheap hit, if you're a cruel and heartless person. And at the end, he bows again, with his Dreamnail dialogue reading, "Masterful. Even a vessel discarded bears fierce strength." So Grimm's fight checks all the boxes of being a rewarding fight. To sum everything up, these fights make you feel like you've accomplished a worthy challenge, and the bosses treat you like a real opponent just as much as you treat them like a tough battle. One last comparison to make is how Nightmare King Grimm is rather similar to the Sisters of Battle, who are a tougher version of the Mantis Lords, exclusive to Godhome. What I mean by this is that now that you've mastered their simpler forms, you're prepared to take on these tougher bosses. Go back to fight either the Mantis Lords or Grimm and see how much faster you are and easier they are to complete once you've taken down Nightmare King Grimm or the Sisters of Battle. All this to say that players looking for an even tougher battle will likely find these fights even more enjoyable than the first 2. So when you land that last hit, the result is an achievement that you will always remember.